me quedo aquí me voy a morir. De hambre, de necesidad,
¿Usted se va solo con su familia?
O no, con toda mi familia ahí nos vamos.
I remember that day very vividly. It was Thanksgiving. It was pitch black to the north, and to the east, it was like this ray of light coming up where the sun was starting to come up. They called me the fisherman, but I really hadn't been out fishing a lot. My cousin Sam, he's more of a fisherman than me. He's saying look for seaweed and look for debris, anything that was floating on the ocean surface. Maybe like 3 miles off the coast, I said to him, like that inner tube right there? He said, yeah, go over there.
And I said to my cousin, look at man, it's a sick joke. We thought it was a doll tied to an inner tube. We thought it was like a joke, you know?
We're rocking all over the boat, and all of a sudden, I see the hand move. He goes, hurry, go, 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 go. And before I could blink my eyes, my cousin's not on the boat any longer. He's in the water, and he's screaming, it's a baby.
When I got underneath him, he reached over, he grabbed me by the neck, and I tried to kick my way back to the boat.
I'm trying not to fall into the water, and he's trying to push up, and I just grabbed this child and I held him in my arms, and then my cousin got on the phone with his wife.
911, what's your emergency? My husband was a 5-year-old child, and he has him on the phone.
All the local news stations, they were out there in helicopters. They were thinking, wow, this is a little bigger than what we thought it was.
Don't worry about me, just go ahead and look at the boat.
Do you know this boy?
Soy Elian González. Tal vez me recuerda, tal vez no. La historia de lo sucedido no está escrita en ningún lugar. Lo que quedan son las memorias de las personas, cómo lo vivieron. Peligrosa. Lo mío no fue una película, fue una historia real.
And from the ocean waters off the coast of Florida tonight, a real-life Thanksgiving story to tell you about.
Found him clinging to an inner tube on Thanksgiving.
Part of a group of 13 Cuban rafters. Only 2 others rescued alive.
Elian's mother is believed to have drowned, but he has cousins he just met in Miami.
This is the story of a little boy from Cuba whose mother died bringing him to freedom in the United States. Or maybe it's the story of a boy shipwrecked in Miami, whose Cuban father just wanted him back. It was always supposed to be Elian's story, although a lot of other people would try to make it their own.
The first thing that came to my mind, how did he survive by himself when he's only 5? And the only thing I could probably say that it's just a miracle. God wanted him here for freedom.
here.
And he's here, and he will get it.
So when I saw the press there, to me that was normal. That's what they're there for.
When Elian and his cousin Maris Lesis waved goodbye from the hospital the next day, the story could have ended there. Another Cuban rafter makes his home in Miami.
Ready to go home.
Like so many Cuban families, the Gonzalez clan had come apart in the years after Fidel Castro's revolution. From the small town of Cardenas on Cuba's north coast, aunts and uncles of Elian's father had made their way across the Florida Straits, settling in the Miami enclaves of Hialeah and Little Havana. The eldest of Elian's great-uncles, Delfin, had come in the late 1970s after spending years as a political prisoner in Castro's jails. He found a quiet life in the Florida Keys, where he made his living selling lobster traps. Delfin's younger brother, Lázaro, followed with his wife and 2 children. He worked mostly as an auto body repairman, but struggled to find a steady job. Lázaro's daughter, Maris Lesis, had arrived in the United States when she was Elian's age. At 21, she processed loans at a local bank and dreamed of opening a hair salon.
I'm told that of all the family members, you're the one that Elian has bonded with most. Do you feel that bond?
I sure do. Definitely. I feel like if he's been my brother since a little kid.
¿Cómo está, niño?
Dile bye. A ver, saluda a la gente. Salúdalo. Dile. Hola. Óyeme, Elian, ¿qué has hecho? ¿Te comiste mucho? ¿Te has jugado con tu primo? ¿A qué jugaste con ellos?
So if this little boy has to go back to Cuba, it would really break your heart, wouldn't it? Sorry.
His mom died for him. And I feel that he deserves to be here. That's what his mom wanted, and his mom is first, to me.
We were also scared to ask him what happened. And then there was that day where he said, and I woke up and my mom was not there. She must have drowned. She drowned. I swallowed real hard and I grind my teeth not to cry. And I looked at him and I said, she's always watching over you. So don't ever say your mom's dead, because she has to always live in your heart.
Para mí era un niño, era un juego, yo estaba dormido, me llevan a ese lugar y cuando estábamos en la costa yo pregunto, ¿qué hacemos? ¿A dónde vamos? Lo que me responden es que vamos a ver a tus tíos. Después lo que recuerdo es que el barco se rompe, me montan en la cámara de neumático, levantaba la cabeza, miraba y volví y me quedaba dormido. Y mi mamá todo el tiempo me daba agua, me tapaba con una manta. Después lo que recuerdo es que vuelvo y me despierto y veo a mi mamá y a la amiga discutiendo. Cuando me vuelvo y me levanto solo veo a mi mamá y ya para la próxima no veo a nadie. Yo sobreviví por mi mamá.
Ya habían rumores en la calle de que sí, se habían ido para afuera, pero en ese momento ahí no se sabía nada de qué había sucedido.
In Cuba, Elian's father, Juan Miguel, hadn't known that his ex-wife and her boyfriend had taken Elian away on a homemade boat, hoping to start their lives over in the United States. Frantic to find them, Juan Miguel and his parents immediately began calling their relatives in Miami. But almost from the start, the two sides of the family were talking past each other.
¿Cuál es la orientación de nosotros como familia hacia ellos? Bueno, cuídenlo, que todo salga bien hasta que se pueda hacer los trámites para traerlo para acá. Yo pensé que simplemente haber perdido a su madre y yo como padre reclamarlo, simplemente lo que tenía que coger el niño en un avión, montarlo y traérmelo para Cuba.
I remember my dad saying that You know, Juan Miguel says to take care of him so he could come over here. And the beginning of everything, I always had a picture in my mind that he was gonna come and stay. And it was like, wow, my whole family's gonna be reunited.
Juan Miguel's branch of the family was rooted comfortably in Cuba. He and his parents were loyal members of the ruling Communist Party. And Juan Miguel, who had remarried, had a good job at the nearby beach resort of Varadero. When they needed help, they didn't hesitate to ask the Cuban government.
No, Juan Miguel González. Comencé a preguntar, a averiguar, a ir al partido, al gobierno, a dónde yo tenía que hacer reclamaciones, cómo tenía que hacer para buscar el regreso, el retorno de mi hijo. Nuestra familia en Miami siempre tuvieron la esperanza de que mi padre algún día pudiera estar junto a ellos allá. En ese principio, de momento, tuvieron la fe y la buena idea, esperanza de ayudarnos. Ya entonces la familia cambió.
You get some gifts there that the Congresswoman wants to give you, maybe.
As soon as Elian's rescue made the local news, uninvited guests began to descend on the Gonzalez home in Little Havana.
People are literally dying to flee Cuba.
Among the first was Jorge Mas Santos, the head of the most powerful exile group, the Cuban-American National Foundation.
And we saw in this image of this young boy who lost his mother at sea, I think the image of everything that Cuban-Americans felt. I thought the Cuban-American National Foundation should use this as messaging of a human story, of a human tragedy. That's why we developed a poster in the campaign to bring attention to something that we need to stop.
This is a typical tragic Miami story that has to do with people trying to leave Cuba and drowning at sea. We sent that out to a lot of different media. All of a sudden, it became a national story.
They made T-shirts with Elian's picture. And
El día 2 de diciembre, Fidel me manda a buscar para tener una entrevista conmigo. Me dice, mira, si tú la decisión que tomas es que tú quieres irte, no hay problema ninguno. Nosotros, el Estado cubano, te abrimos todas las puertas, te hacemos todos los trámites y tú vas con tu familia y te unes con el niño. Le dije que no, que mi intención no era irme. Mi intención era que yo lo que quería era regresar a mi hijo para acá. Me dijo, bueno, si tú estás seguro, a partir de tu decisión, va a ser todo nuestro pueblo quien va a reclamar, quien va a salir a las calles a luchar y a regresar, a hacer que tu hijo regrese.
Pues van a haber millones de gente en la calle reclamando la libertad del niño, que no cesarán hasta que devuelvan al niño. Lo único que puedo decir es que si son medianamente inteligentes, anuncien la devolución de ese niño antes de 72 horas. Muchas gracias.
NBC News in depth tonight. It's a struggle over a little boy.
White House officials clearly don't want this dispute to become a big international incident.
Don't forget, that country is in an election campaign, says Castro.
America has determined enemies who hate our values.
We've just begun to fight.
well, of course, I'd rather grow up in the United States, but there may be other considerations there.
The uprising that brought Fidel Castro to power in 1959 overthrew a brutal dictatorship that was closely allied with the United States. The revolutionaries promised a more just and democratic society, even as Castro consolidated his own power quickly and ruthlessly. Well-off Cubans began fleeing to Miami as soon as the rebels took power, and the exodus continued as Castro confiscated private property and nationalized American-owned oil refineries.
Are you a communist, Fidel? Well, wait for the history. The history will say what we are.
With Castro drawing closer to the Soviets, the American government punished Cuba with an economic embargo. Then it backed an invasion by Cuban exiles at the Bay of Pigs. the bitter exiles would blame their defeat on the Americans' half-hearted support. But Castro reveled in his victory, which made him a hero to revolutionaries around the world and gave him enemies in Miami and Washington that he would exploit for years to come. New waves of Cuban refugees poured into Miami.
What are conditions like there now?
In Cuba,
Yes?
bad condition. We have no dress, we have no food. We have difficult for all things there.
Where do you plan to settle here in the United States?
In Miami, where my mother lives, and my sister.
The Cold War never ended in Miami. A mother died getting her kid out of Cuba to get him to freedom. Of course we're going to hold that child because we don't want him to go back.
We have a role to play in protecting freedom. And when people risk everything to come, even if they're a 5-year-old kid, they ought to be allowed to stay.
Quiero que sea un hombre libre y sea un hombre de bien en los Estados Unidos.
Relatives of Elian Gonzalez say they saw a different side of the 6-year-old, a boy simply filled with joy and happiness as the Disney World visit. But family spokesman Armando Gutierrez says Elian showed some lingering signs of his ordeal and rescue at sea when he went on the It's a Small World water ride.
He was a little bit frightened one time with the boat and asked the question, is this boat going to sink?
Toys for a tot torn between two countries. Elian Gonzalez has officially captivated a community.
Los recuerdos de cuando estaba con mis tíos son recuerdos muy vagos. Todo era confuso, yo no conocía a las personas que estaba viendo. Yo no quería saludar a nadie, yo soy tímido. Hacía volar la imaginación de un niño, me creía que era Superman, me creía que era Batman. Y recuerdo que pedí un traje de Batman, me dieron un traje de Batman. Quería jugar béisbol, un bate de béisbol.
Oye, qué bárbaro, un bate.
Lo hacían como un juego.
We wanted to give him a life where he felt comfortable and everything was normal. Then we got him to go to school. He was so happy to go to school.
Recuerdo que en los primeros momentos que me intentaron llevar a la escuela, no me gustaba la escuela.
They were summoned by President Fidel Castro for what he calls the second stage of the Battle of the Masses. Thousands demonstrated again in front of the U.S. diplomatic mission in Havana.
Fidel asked me to work with Juan Miguel, helping him to recover his child.
The boy's father joined other Cubans at a weekend rally demanding the child be returned.
American immigration officials will interview the father here in Cuba, give him a chance to assert his rights and prove his paternity.
We had this very unusual circumstance of a father in Cuba asking for the son to be returned to him. It was pretty unprecedented. I mean, typically people who came to the United States from Cuba came because they wanted to stay here. As the Immigration Service, we had to determine whether this was actually the father, and since the child had come to the United States with the mother, whether the father had a relationship with the child. What was the family story?
Quisieron venir aquí para entonces yo pudiera probar de que realmente era mi hijo. Quisieron también ver si yo de verdad era un padre preocupado por él. Lo vieron en fotos, lo vieron en video, lo vieron en entrevistas que hicieron con personas, lo vieron en todo, de que realmente había una vida social, una vida íntima, familiar con el niño.
¿Qué debo hacer? Eso. Bye. Mira, mira.
El mismo cariño que mi familia, mis padres me transmitieron cuando niño, traté de transmitirlo, de hacer lo mismo.
Juan Miguel and Elisa had married as teenagers, and it had taken them years and 7 miscarriages before Elian was born. Strains on the marriage eventually led them to separate, but they set aside their differences to build a new relationship around the son they both adored.
Seguimos con la misma unión, como si fuéramos hermanos. Inclusive aquí estando separado yo de la madre, el cumpleaños lo celebrábamos juntos, la fiesta la hacíamos juntos, todo era junto. Por primera vez en su 6º cumpleaños no estuviera al lado mío.
¿Qué está pensando hoy, el día del cumpleaños de Elian?
Bueno, hoy más que nunca que lo felicito, lo quiero, lo deseo, que lo quiero tener al lado mío, lo quiero tener en mis brazos, tenerlo junto a mí.
Eiti, luego te cuento lo de la fiestecita de la escuela. Eiti, tírame besito. Cuídate.
Hasta luego, Eliancito.
Pronto nos vemos, ¿viste?
Pronto nos vemos.
Qué lindo. Hasta luego. Que ellos no tienen derecho ninguno sobre el niño. Todo el derecho del niño lo tenemos nosotros. Yo que soy su padre, que estoy reclamando, que quiero que lo antes posible esté aquí. Lo que están haciendo no es ningún bien para el niño, ni ningún bien para nosotros. Y el que de verdad tenga hijos y se sienta humano, no hace lo que están haciendo.
For me, seeing my cousin on TV.
The case of Elian Gonzalez has been a difficult one, complicated by the fact that several people other than Elian's father claimed to represent him. INS has determined that Elian should be reunited with his father. And then we said, by January 14th, he's to be turned over to the INS so that he can be returned to his father. What did I think at that time? Did I think it would happen? I don't know.
Fight was on, the fight was on.
This community has asked for since day one the due process of Elian Gonzalez.
With help from Jorge Mas, the family tried to go around the Immigration Service, turning to some of the Cuban-American National Foundation's powerful allies in Washington.
We thought the best way to make sure that the judicial process was followed was to issue a subpoena.
This is a federal subpoena which we believe protects Elian Gonzalez from being forcibly and illegally removed from the United States back to Cuba.
In Miami, people celebrated the subpoena, which orders little Elian to appear before U.S. Congress in an effort to delay his return to Cuba.
Several congressmen and at least one senator say they will offer bills as early as February to grant Elian Gonzalez permanent U.S. citizenship.
But it's not just Congress. At last night's Republican presidential debate, all the candidates demand that Elian be allowed to stay here and his father allowed to join him if he wishes.
The man ought to be brought to the United States, given a whiff of freedom, so he can see how wonderful our country is.
Why has this become so political? Because Cuban Americans are a critical voting bloc in Florida's Republican presidential primary and a lucrative source of campaign money for both political parties. The 6-year-old may have even more politicians as playmates.
I think the law has indicated, and it's certainly, I think, the experience of most people, that 6 years old is too young to speak for themselves.
Under U.S. law, it was the Attorney General, Janet Reno, who had the final say on Elian's immigration case. Trying to find a compromise, she set aside the deadline for returning Elian to Cuba and invited his Miami relatives to plead their case.
Today we have filed a very significant lawsuit in federal court. It is the case of Elian Gonzalez versus Janet Reno.
My hope is that people will look at this little boy and get him into a situation where he can live a normal life without television cameras and the world in his face.
Watch out there, watch out, guys. Señor, señor.
Esta noche, Señor, todo este pueblo unido con sus luces en alto te está rogando para que el sacrificio de Elizabeth, la madre de Elian, nuestro pequeño Moisés, no haya sido en vano.
Elian himself had said almost nothing in public during his time in Miami. But one night in January, a camera caught him yelling at a passing airplane, and his words quickly became a point of contention. The family disputed the initial translation by local television and insisted that Elian had really said he didn't want to return to Cuba.
He is being manipulated. That is what really concerns me, and it has been concerning me for a long time.
This was not a simple matter of a parent saying, I miss my child, I need to bring my child home. This was going to take time, and there was always the possibility that they would not be able to get him home. I've been involved in Cuba for almost 40 years. And if you've been to Cuba and you come to know Cuban people, you really have a very different view than if you've only lived in the United States. The National Council of Churches decided to see if by our efforts we could get this child returned to his family in Cuba. First of all, we needed to win over the American people.
It's a very emotional thing to hear a family talk about the loss of a child.
And I knew that the grandmothers had a passion about getting this little boy back home. So I had to go to Fidel Castro, and I had to ask permission to take them.
The grandmothers came, and we tried to arrange a visit for them with Elian, who of course was in Miami. And then ensued a back and forth over the terms, because in fact there was such tension and unresolved issues and disagreement within the family itself.
El único mensaje que yo traigo del padre es que el niño tiene que regresar y él no tiene por qué venir aquí si vinimos las dos abuelas a buscarlo.
Ellos pueden venir ya que tienen la oportunidad de venir a Miami, que es donde vive el niño y donde vivimos la familia de los González.
Yo les ruego de que hagan todo lo posible porque el niño nos lo entreguen a las abuelas para que mi hija pueda descansar.
With local television stations covering the tug-of-war live, Elian met with his grandmothers at the home of a Miami nun who was an old friend of Janet Reno.
I wasn't allowed to stay in the room with them, and this was the perfect time for him to tell her, I want to leave with you, if that was what was in his heart. If that would have been me, I would have run to my grandma and tell her, take me. But he didn't. Actually, he did the opposite. He ran out of that room, and all he said to me is, run, run, they're gonna take us. It just made me feel, wow, I need to fight for his freedom, just like his mom gave her life for it.
I think for the grandmothers, the meeting was extremely frustrating, and they felt that he was in danger. They felt he was drugged. But they did go home having seen Elian, and they did go home more determined that they had to get him home.
I feel great, and I feel confident, yeah, strong, and that I have more feelings that I had before. Now I feel that he's more to this side than to that side.
Esta ha sido una noche muy importante, un éxito para esta familia, un éxito para Elian González, cuando solamente hace 3 o 4 semanas Inmigración le había prometido al régimen castrista que Elian estuviera una vez más con ellos en Cuba. Ellas están obedeciendo órdenes de La Habana y creo que eso hay que denunciarlo y no es correcto.
You going in a big ass hurry, man?
At that time, I was a freelancer for AP. One morning, I get a call from my editor, and he says, all right, this is what I want you to do. You cover Elian every day.
5 minutes ago.
Miami police shut down the street. The whole half block was blocked off. There were TV stations that were paying $500 a day just to have a crew in front of the house.
Back in 1999 and 2000, we weren't actually living in 24-hour news cycles. It was a very different landscape. All of a sudden, we've got media stakeouts, and they are, using this child almost as a prop to tell a story, having him out playing with an American flag at 11 o'clock at night. So we'd not seen anything like that.
Rewarding this atrocious behavior, this trotting out this kid the way they did, and then you're acting shocked and surprised that it's happening. They wanted a full media blitz, and we gave it to them.
We had things like, Diane Sawyer going to have play dates with Elian.
We spent some time drawing, some waves, a dolphin, himself in an inner tube. Me, he said, I was sinking.
I always tell him I'm his cousin.
He tries to call you mom sometimes?
Yeah, he says Mari stands for mom.
Una persona que no creo que se merezca que yo le tenga rabia es Mari Lacey. Trató de hacer lo que veía que hacía su familia y creo que intentó darme el cariño que no tenía en ese momento. Si yo hoy razono, Mari Lacey era una niña.
And nobody cares about a little boy who lost his mother, who's lost everything, and now is about to lose the only thing that he has, which is me, and it's hard to say. When he tells me Please don't ever leave me. People just say return him to his father, but people don't live with this little boy. People don't see how this little boy feels.
As the weeks passed, national polls showed a deep divide, with more and more Americans outside South Florida in favor of returning the boy to his father. But in Miami, the exile's fury continued to grow, spilling over into protests that blocked traffic on the highways and exasperated many of the city's non-Cubans.
I'm a parent, and I believe that a child should be with his father. You know, I mean...
I by now had seen the anger in Miami. I had seen the determination of some of the Miami Cubans to make sure that Elian did not leave. Senator Leahy came to me, and he said, we're going to get that little boy back to his father, and I'm going to help you, but you're never going to make it happen if you don't involve a lawyer in this. I have a lawyer for you. His name is Greg Craig. I'm calling him now. He won't say no.
I went to the Justice Department and said, I'm going to go to Cuba, and I want to be able to tell Juan Miguel that when he comes back to the United States, he will be able to take custody of his son within the space of a few days, that he's not going to have to sit in some room and watch his son on television being paraded around by these relatives. They were not willing to give me that commitment. I had nothing going down to Cuba other than to say, now's the time to do it. To be clear, Castro was in the middle of this decision-making. Castro was waking up from a nap. You could just tell that he'd been asleep and he was putting himself together. And the meeting was forever. It lasted forever. And we drank more coffee and more water, and people would be getting up and going off to relieve themselves. Castro didn't move for 4 hours. I think perhaps he had a device. He would shake his finger at me and said, why do you think an American court would ever rule in favor of a Cuban national? There has never been a case where a Cuban national has won. And my only argument was, I don't know of any time when the government of the United States has been on the same side of the case as a Cuban national, which in turn, you're on the same side with the government of Cuba. That's never happened in history, so maybe the results will be different.
We're talking with Dr. Andrew Weil, the author of Eating Well for Optimum Health.
I think it is fine to lower cholesterol levels.
Let me cut you in a second. Let's go to Washington to Greg Craig at the offices of Williams & Connolly.
My name is Gregory B. Craig. I'm pleased to report that Juan Miguel Gonzalez, his wife and 6-month-old son, will be coming to the United States. They will arrive tomorrow morning, Thursday, April 6th at 7 a.m. at Dulles Airport.
Todo está coordinado y ellos estarán allí. El abogado, uno de los mejores de Estados Unidos, la señora Campbell, y hasta el padre Valiente, a las 4 de la mañana saldrá, como les dije. Yo por lo menos lo voy a despedir.
No sabía si temblaba del frío, si temblaba del nerviosismo.
He llegado a Washington, donde espero abrazar muy pronto y por primera vez en más de 4 meses a mi hijo Elian González Brotón. Me acompañan mi esposa y mi hijo de 6 meses, quienes son la verdadera familia de Elian.
Yo me sentía en ese momento, estando más cerca, me sentía más lejos.
It was the next day that we had the meeting with the Attorney General. I'm driving the car, and I'm saying to myself, now is the time to tell Juan Miguel what his options are. There's no Cuban diplomats, Fidel Castro is not in the room, it's just the family. So I said to Juan Miguel, if you want to get Elian back this afternoon and stay in the United States with your family, You will have that opportunity because you're going to have the Attorney General of the United States, you're going to have the Commissioner of INS, and they will grant that request if you want to do that.
Sir.
He says, thank you very much.
At a certain point, the Attorney General asked that everybody else leave the room.
It was a very powerful meeting. Very powerful.
He cut off the conversation almost when it started, saying, I stand by my word. I have a family in Cuba. I have a life in Cuba. My son is going to grow up as a Cuban, and I am not going to be claiming asylum. He was a very proud, very clear person.
I called my cousin and said, look, we need to go and meet with this father and find out what he really wants to do. This is our time to go and find out the truth.
Donato was instantly drawn to a camera. I begged him, no more shows, Donato, no more shows. And he got off the airplane at Dulles, and it was probably the biggest media center I've ever seen in my entire life. Once we got into the car from the airport, it was within 60 seconds that I knew I was in the car with the Cuban National Foundation. They were already brainwashing Donato and trying to brainwash me. They wanted to look like that once we got there, that Juan Miguel refused to meet us.
Juan Miguel came in and, in a very sincere way, thanked them for having saved Elian's life.
Juan Miguel was a very, very heartwarming, loving father with tears in his eyes when he would talk to me. My heart told me the right thing, and he wanted his child back.
A San desde el primer momento lo vi como una persona de familia, una persona que tenía hijos, una persona que inclusive era cariñosa.
We're talking about a 6-year-old little boy here, people. It's a child. That's what we need to be concerned about, nobody else. The rest of it is all BS, man. We need to put this baby to rest right now. Donato has to speak for himself.
I said, I'm Donato, the fisherman, the one they call El Pescador. I was there when your son was about to drown. And man, this guy's eyes started to well up with water. And I ran over there and I grabbed him and I hugged him.
Lo había visto manipulando a mi hijo, metiéndolo en una bandera. Lo había visto haciendo miles de cosas con él. Y de buena primera se echa a llorar delante de mí. Se arrodilla en el piso delante de mí. Estaba haciendo algo que no era sincero.
We didn't kick him out, but we had to urge him to leave.
I don't stand in the way of this father. But I can tell you this, I don't feel that he is free outside of his lawyer here. Juan Miguel said that he's not going to go down to Miami, so what's going to happen?
We needed a family meeting, away from the media, governments pitted against each other, the Cuban-American National Foundation versus the Castro brothers. It needed to get out of that. And we needed a neutral third party, which I thought was the Catholic Church. We got the blessing of the Pope about using the Vatican Embassy in Washington. I had a private jet prepared. Elian was going to be taken to my home that evening so that he could be on a plane at 4 in the morning.
I got a call from Jorge Mas saying to go to Elian's house and tell the family to bring Elian to Washington. I went into the house and I said, if you ask me, I wouldn't do it. Because if you're going to ask me for any guarantees as to what's going to happen, I can't give them to you. And I remember there was a huge thing of seafood or paella or something, and Lázaro was so tense by this time that he grabs his phone and throws it in there, and I'm just sitting there and I'm watching this phone, sinking into the rice.
El niño tiene su nuevo hogar y vive aquí. Y para su mejor conocimiento, Elian me dijo que no quería ir a Washington.
There's a new element in this story. The boy's Miami relatives released a videotape of Elian recorded last night. It shows him on a bed. We're going to show it to you. It's not clear who was in the room with him, whether he was coached or not.
Papá, yo no me quiero ir para Cuba. Si tú quieres, quédate aquí. Yo no me voy para Cuba. Yo les digo a ustedes dicen que me quieren para Cuba, pero yo les digo a ustedes ahora que yo no me quiero para Cuba. Si quieren, si ustedes quieren, quédense aquí, pero yo no me quiero ir para Cuba.
After the Miami relatives refused to bring the kid to Washington, it became clear that if we wanted Elian, we were going to have to go into the house and take him.
For the last couple of days, we weren't even 100% sure that Elian was even inside the home. He was not being brought out by family members. He didn't make appearances into the crowds. The less we saw of him, the more concern we had as to his welfare.
If it comes to taking Elian by force, U.S. law enforcement officials have a plan.
Elements of the Marshals SWAT-like Special Operations Group are available. The 1,100-member Miami Police Department and the Florida Highway Patrol has placed units on alert. The final go or no-go order will come only from Attorney General Janet Reno.
For weeks, the government had been assembling a shock force of federal agents to seize Elian if necessary. But Janet Reno had misgivings that went beyond her loyalty to Cuban exiles in Miami.
But Janet Reno was somebody who made her decisions based on the facts and the law.
Instead of discussing how Elian should be reunited, the attorneys for the relatives continued to demand that we revisit the issue of whether Elian should be reunited. That is not what the law provides.
Demonstrators break through those barricades to try to form a human chain around this house if indeed federal agents came to seize Elian Gonzalez.
There were people in the crowds that had violent police records. There were armed individuals in the crowd. The entire event was a potential powder keg. We wanted to effect this search warrant as soon as possible. The only delays were last-ditch efforts made by the U.S. government to negotiate a peaceful, so to speak, surrender of the child to the U.S. government.
Ms. Reno was willing to exhaust every option. So when members of the community came in and said, you know, we think we can broker a deal, she was willing to talk to them.
Offer was the same as had been made repeatedly by the family, and that ultimately not only hadn't succeeded, but was not willing to in any way concede turning over the child to the father.
It was just another effort, I think most of us thought, to delay.
We had identified 5 a.m. to be an optimal time to execute this search warrant. We were ready well prior to that and still awaiting a final green light from the Department of Justice.
Them deadlines. She told them, after this point, it's going to be too late, and then you are out of time. You're running out of time. Are we on hold? Is it a go? And Ms. Reno said it's a go.
Then about 4 o'clock, I get a call from Aaron, and his voice is almost shaking. And he says to me, you got 5 minutes to wake everybody up. Woke everybody up. And while we're having that conversation, there's a bunch of yelling and screaming outside. And I said to Aaron, Aaron, the feds are here.
Can we go live? Can we go live? Are we shooting it? Federal agents, stay back behind the barricade! Back behind the barricade!
Hordes of people were going to do everything in their power to prevent us from reaching the front door. They chanted, they screamed, lights went on, they formed human chains. We virtually had to push our way to the front door.
The whole world is watching this!
Behind us, there was a riot going on.
They're fucking! Fuck the United States!
It was clearly organized resistance. I pounded at the door. Federal agents were executing a search warrant. Open the door, open the door. I had to give the order to breach the door.
When I look, I see all these people with guns.
Boom! The door busted open, and there's a federal armed agent with an assault weapon, and he's got that thing pointed directly at me and Elian. All I hear is shh.
I'm flashing, I'm strobing this guy in the face. It was, you know, freedom of press. You can't touch that.
Ya los recuerdos más concretos que vengo a tener es el día en que me rescatan. Cuando entramos en la guaguita, en la van, me dice, yo soy amiga de tu papá, voy a llevarte donde está tu papá. Y ahí es donde empiezo a calmarme. Me llaman a mi papá por el teléfono y me lo ponen, mi papá me habla.
Y le digo, papo, no te preocupes, son amigos de papá. Te están llevando para... Te van a traer para donde está papá, entonces cuándo, ya. Fui hasta el avión a buscar el niño.
¿Cuándo sentiste cuando le vi la primera vez?
Imagínese.
An election in turmoil, a presidency in the balance. A nation waits. Who will emerge the winner in the historic Florida recount?
There were 10,000 Cuban-American Democrats who became Republicans post-Elian. Had the Elian event been handled better, yeah, we might not have had the Iraq War.
I, George Walker Bush, do solemnly swear.
President Bush became the President of the United States in 2000 because of Elian Gonzalez. There is no doubt in my mind, and I think that the numbers prove that out.